In this series of videos, you'll learn about how self-regulation and other psychosocial factors relate to our adoption and maintenance of health-related behaviors and weight outcomes. We have 3 learning objectives for this series of videos. After viewing these videos, you will be able to explain the role of self-regulation and autonomy in adoption and maintenance of health behaviors, discuss the importance of impulse control and delay of gratification for health, and recognize how emotion regulation strategies can impact weight-related behaviors and outcomes. This video will focus on the first learning objective, which is to explain the role of self-regulation and autonomy in adoption and maintenance of health behaviors. We know that obesity results from a complex array of factors that range from individual to interpersonal to environmental. These all affect an individual's propensity towards obesity, their weight-related behaviors, and weight outcomes. Within this series of videos, we will focus on individual-level factors to better understand how we can work with individuals to support their abilities to adopt and maintain health behaviors within any environment they encounter. More than 40 years ago, Walter Mischel, a psychologist now at Columbia University, explored self-control in children with a simple but effective test. His experiments using the marshmallow test, as it came to be known, laid the groundwork for the modern study of self-control and self-regulation. Within the marshmallow test, Mischel brought preschool-aged children into his lab and posed them with a simple game: resist eating a marshmallow until the experimenter returned. There were toys and other distractions available, but each child was left alone in the room with a marshmallow on a plate. The child was told that if they could resist eating the marshmallow, they would be rewarded with 2 marshmallows to eat when the experimenter returned. The child could use an immediate, smaller reward, eating 1 marshmallow, or a delayed, larger reward, eating 2 marshmallows later. This test challenged children to delay gratification and assessed whether and how long these young children could delay gratification to receive their desired reward. As you might guess, there was wide variability in how children responded. Some ate the marshmallow immediately and showed little ability to delay gratification, while others were able to wait the full duration to obtain the large reward. This marshmallow test represents one facet of self-regulation, which is defined as the ability to manage emotions and behavior in accordance with the demands of the situation. Effective self-regulation is widely regarded as an important skill that enables children and adults alike to direct their own behavior towards a goal, regardless of the challenges imposed by our desires and environments. Mischel and others' research on self-regulation during childhood showed that this simple test is a robust predictor of later success and health outcomes. Young children who were able to self-regulate in this setting went on to have better educational, socio-emotional, and health outcomes during later childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. In particular, Mischel and his colleagues examined whether delay of gratification in the marshmallow task predicted weight status during adulthood, and indeed found that delaying gratification longer at age 4 was associated with a lower BMI approximately 30 years later. This and related findings supports the notion that the ability to delay gratification, and more broadly effective self-regulation skills, promote an important foundation for the adoption and maintenance of health behaviors and health-related outcomes. To better understand where our abilities to self-regulate come from and how we can develop effective self-regulation skills, we'll look at this issue from a developmental perspective. We are born into the world with different temperaments, which are innate individual differences in reactivity to changes in the external and internal environments we experience. We measure these differences in terms of the latency, duration, and intensity of our emotional, orienting, and motor reactions. Temperament also determines our abilities towards self-regulation in the domains of affect, activity, and attention. Specifically, each infant exhibits a unique temperamental profile that varies along the domains of extroversion, negative affect, and effortful control. Young babies vary in how naturally extroverted they are, meaning how open they are to new experiences and social engagement. Young babies also vary in how sensitive they are to stimuli and the extent to which they express negativity, such as fussing and crying, in response to stimuli that bother them. Finally, they vary in their initial levels of self-regulation and how quickly they are able to calm down and be soothed when distressed or overstimulated. These traits are considered precursors to personality during adulthood and shape how young babies interact with their parents, families, and early environments. So essentially, temperament creates the initial foundation for how well we self-regulate and the self-regulatory strategies we use. We see initial differences in how well we modulate our reactivity to internal and external stimuli, especially as related to our abilities to focus our attention and control our behaviors. However, the combination of genetics, maturation and brain development, parents' abilities to match their parenting strategies to their infants' unique temperamental needs, and other environmental stressors such as experiences of deprivation all contribute to the development of temperament and related self-regulation skills. Taken together, these factors predict which infants mature into children and adults with effective self-regulation skills versus those who struggle to effectively self-regulate. Let's think of some tangible examples of what the development of effective self-regulation skills looks like during early childhood. The transition from diapers to being toilet trained is a good example because it represents the infant developing the ability to be aware of the meaning of internal cues, in this case the feeling of having to urinate or defecate, and then delaying acting on those cues until he or she can get to a toilet. We also see increases in self-regulatory abilities related to social interactions. Young children can be very impulsive during social interactions, wherein they see a toy they want and they grab it, regardless of whether or not another child is currently using it. With time, children learn to self-regulate these impulses for the greater goal of social engagement and cooperation. Young children get better at asking for what they want and sharing with peers, which is an important foundation for developing peer-to-peer relationships. Finally, young babies often need parents to soothe them to sleep. They have trouble transitioning between awake and sleep states and require co-regulation from parents to modulate these states. With time and effective co-regulation from parents, babies get better at soothing themselves to sleep when tired. Self-regulation continues to underline our behaviors and reactions into later childhood and adulthood. It is important to note that self-regulation skills are not necessarily a given with maturation. Adults vary in how effectively they self-regulate, and these abilities influence their health behaviors and outcomes. And to be clear, our goal with self-regulation is to find the Goldilocks zone, where we are exhibiting just the right amount of self-regulation, not too little but not too much. Here are some examples to illustrate these points. Within the domain of eating behaviors, an adult who has poor abilities to self-regulate intake may experience many snackcidents, where they end up eating more than they intend or need because food was available. However, on the other end of the spectrum, an adult who exhibits very high levels of self-regulation around eating may become a highly restrained, perhaps even venturing into disordered eating, by eating very little or very few foods because of their concerns about their diet or weight. The ideal would be someone who has flexible restraint over their eating. They refrain from eating too much or foods that are not in line with their dietary and health goals, but they also indulge here and there and eat foods that they enjoy, but in ways that support their goals. Similarly, with exercise, an adult who has poor abilities to self-regulate their exercise habits may want to exercise daily, but can never muster the motivation to wake up in response to their alarm so they have time to exercise in the morning. In contrast, an adult who exhibits very high levels of self-regulation around exercise may exercise every day, rain or shine, even when they are injured or sick. This over-exercise may lead to further injury or illness. More desirable would be a consistent exercise pattern that allows for breaks when needed. We can also think about regulation within interpersonal domains, wherein a person in a relationship may have little self-regulation when their partner wrongs them, resulting in bursts of anger or aggression. On the other end of the spectrum, an individual who over-regulates in this domain may never speak up for themselves or ask for what they need in their relationship. Most desirable would be to express negative emotions in ways that are appropriate to the situation and context, thus are more constructive towards promoting healthy, balanced relationships. Hopefully, by this point it is clear to you that self-regulation is an important part of adoption and maintenance of health behaviors. For this reason, we consider it to be an important aspect of behavior change. Often, when working with others, a key issue is how to ensure that patients leave our offices with the motivation and skills needed to successfully implement the prescriptions, advice, or develop goals that resulted from our interactions. Self-regulation skills are the missing link. For this reason, we should also take the time to consider and promote self-regulation skills to help our patients achieve their goals. Theories of health behavior and related research shows us that lasting behavior change occurs when an individual accepts a regulation of change as their own. If we think about self-determination theory, this theory tells us that we have two types of motivators, those that are extrinsic or external to us, and those that are intrinsic or internal to us. Extrinsic motivation is that which is driven by external factors focused on the end result of a behavior. This is when we do something because we are bribed to do it or because we want to earn a prize, a grade, or the respect of others. These factors are powerful motivators, but they are also limited by the fact that motivation declines when these rewards are no longer present or available. Therefore, this type of motivation is contingent on external factors which may not always be under the control of the individual. We instead want to promote intrinsic motivation, which is motivation that's linked to the process of a behavior. This is when we do something because it feels good to us. We feel pride in our effort or hard work. We enjoy the process of monitoring our behavior to better understand ourselves, or we hold ourselves accountable to small achievable goals. Research on self-determination theory tells us that when we can promote this internal motivation in the people with whom we work, they are much more likely to leave our office and follow through with their behavior change goals in ways that are more sustainable because they are motivated by things they can control and not by external factors that are beyond their control. This quote exemplifies this idea and applies it to an obesity prevention and treatment context. It states, because in self-determination theory, promoting autonomy is a non-negotiable goal, those responsible for conducting obesity treatment programs may consider preserving or increasing participants' autonomy as an equivalent outcome to that of weight loss. So what does this quote mean? This quote asserts that weight loss may be our ultimate goal, but an equivalent goal, and one that is just as important as the final outcome of weight loss, is to help patients gain autonomy to engage in the behaviors that support their health, even if it doesn't ultimately result in weight loss. This ensures that patients are not reliant on us to tell them what to do and how to do it, but rather develop the skills that allow them to problem solve and figure out how to make things happen in their own lives when they're on their own. This means we should celebrate someone who achieves these goals and does things like improves their diet or develops a daily exercise habit, even if adherence to these behavior changes doesn't result in the amount of weight loss desired. To do this, we need to focus on the process as well as the patient's basic psychological needs for encouragement, self-efficacy, and autonomy. Here is some data that supports this point and shows us that when interventions actually aim to promote motivation, we see better weight loss outcomes. These data are from a recent randomized controlled trial to increase physical activity levels to promote weight loss. As illustrated on the x-axis, participants participated in the intervention at baseline, then were followed for 3 years. The y-axis represents participants' weight change over the study duration. Weight loss was examined for individuals who had lower, moderate, or higher autonomous motivation. Although all groups lost weight initially, weight regain was seen for those with low motivation. Those with moderate or higher autonomous motivation sustained their health behaviors and weight loss through the 3-year follow-up, with the greatest success seen for those with high levels of autonomous motivation. So, in sum, self-regulation is an important skill and is the foundation for many health outcomes, including healthy weight status. self-regulation, and intrinsic or autonomous motivation are important targets for successful behavior change. By supporting the development of these skills, we are able to bridge the gap between our office and our patients' lives. That's all for this video. Thank you for learning with me.